for the second part of our second show, Wired for War. And when last we left off, we were in a marsh of just bullshit changes that occurred at the 11th hour. The match, I believe, was initially intended to be
Alex Reigns versus Chris Cross.
And then
we are currently at Jacobs Pliskin versus Barrett Brown.
Yeah.
So if you're just jumping in on this episode, wrong episode to jump in for. Go one back and listen to that one.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, so Alex gets injured. Enter Barrett Brown.
Enter Jacobs.
Enter Jacobs.
Out goes Cross.
Out goes Cross because the dude fucking lied to me about being injured. Said he tore a pectoral muscle because he didn't want to wrestle Jacobs because he was a scared little brat.
Yeah.
And this brings us to...
in comes Barrett.
In comes Barrett. Literally
the night before the show, in the middle of my 12 to 16 hour shift, I get a phone call from Jacobs, and I forget what the reason was, but basically telling me he didn't want to wrestle tomorrow. I think he was going through some personal stuff.
Yeah. As Jacobs is wont to do.
Yeah, and I just freak out on him.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, he called back 2 years later and apologized for this. The thing with Jacobs is a killer. He is. He's but he has this super soft puppy dog heart, But anyway,
I also want to say that I have a vague memory of him kind of going, yeah, no, yeah, no.
Yes.
He said he was going to, he said, oh yeah, for sure, I'm good for the booking. And then the night before he goes, no. And then I want to say that the next day there was talk of him saying that he was going to come. And then he decided again, no, I'm not gonna. So
what had happened was, so he calls and tells me he's not coming. And I basically am like, bro, it's the day before the show. You know better than this. You're treating me like a fucking muck promotion. What the fuck, man? We go all the way back. What are you doing to me? So, I call and I guess he stews on this. I call you and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And we come up with what we end up doing. And then he calls back and is like, well, I'll just come. It's like, dude, we're already beyond that. And then it was like, well, I'm just going to show up. You booked me. And it's like, dude, obviously not in a great mental place. But what we got to was the first utilization of the Ricky Starks Lounge,
the VIP section. Yeah, there was a section, a round table with a black tablecloth where certain folks who were affluent would sit. And it was Ricky's section. And in fact, I think Ricky even had a bodyguard very briefly.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, he had a really tall guy who would, wear a suit. And that was his diesel. But the guy didn't have much character. And I don't think he really came back after several shows.
No, I think he was a student that decided wrestling wasn't for him. Yeah,
but so we end up with Barrett and Ricky. And I'm a little cloudy on... what happened here, but the winner of this match would go on to face Sean Vex.
Yep. And the winner of that match would be in the 3-way on the next show. Yeah. So we must have had an open challenge for either Starks or Vex, right?
Yeah.
It had to have been. And then, so we were going to do Vex versus Starks anyway. So Starks pulls double duty. So let me backtrack a little bit. So here's the deal. From the outside looking in, you may go, okay, Jacobs Pliskin dropped off the show. Why don't you just find somebody new? Well, at the 11th hour, you can't really fly somebody in because you can't get a plane ticket in that time. And then on top of that, most of the talent worth using already has a dance partner for the day, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, the one thing that I really need to be emphatic about is that I wanted to be quality control to an almost strangulating degree. I didn't want this to be get your friends and family on the fucking card. I'd seen too much of that. I mean, there were some excruciating wrestling shows that I sat through over the years in the state of Texas where it was just garbage bagger after garbage bagger and just matches that just made no sense. Everything had a purpose on our cards. And, you know, I wanted to make sure that if we had to trade something out, we didn't just trade out, we traded up.
Yeah. Which led to me wanting to string Max on a few occasions, but was for the right reason and led to the quality of cards that we had. So here we have Starks pull double duty. This gives us an opportunity to get Starks a lot of momentum coming off of the DQ finish last show.
Starks shines on this particular show. I think this is the show where he had me dying. He cuts a promo where he's talking, I believe, to Barrett, and as he's getting in the ring, someone screams at him to shut up, and he just starts going off on this guy and says that he is going to continue to talk till the world explodes, and then he's going to go to the guy's funeral, and then he's going to talk some more over the priest, and the crowd is roaring as he just yells at this guy about how he's never going to shut the fuck up. And it really, like, you know, Starks is heel at this point, but there's just something about the guy that you love, you know?
Yeah. He has that unique charisma. And I will always remember the first match that I saw Ricky wrestle was with Jojo Bravo and, you know, at one of these student shows. And it was all the little things, right? It wasn't that he was doing any crazy moves at the time, but it was just as he walked over JoJo's body, he took the extra second to give him a little extra kick. You know, he scraped his boot in the corner. Just the little things.
Nuance, detail, and also humor. He has such an incredible sense of humor, man. He's another one of those people that just, his personality is fantastic. He'd be a phenomenal actor, in fact.
Yeah. And his timing, right? His timing on physical timing, comedic timing, everything is off the charts. So him and Barrett Brown, and this is so cool at this point in time, right? You know, two of the young, extremely talented guys in Texas, they just go out there and they have, as the kids would say today, a banger, right? So a great match between two guys that are up and coming, and you know, both getting their wings out, right? Starting to venture out and just go at it. This is what I love about wrestling, matches like this.
Yeah. And at this point, Ricky has that arc that he's kind of jumping off of where he's, I guess we're kind of doing like an anger management kind of thing where he's sort of testing his threshold and as a character learning to control himself after he lost his last match via DQ. So he is, his character is slowly evolving and he's having a series of experiences going forward that help him kind of learn what his temper can cost him.
Yeah. So he gets the clean win here. He's going to go on later to face Vex. This is going to allow him to atone for getting DQ'd last month. So that's later on down the card. Up next, we have Gregory James, who is now Unholy Gregory James.
Basically doing the black metal gimmick.
Taking on Jeff Gant. Gant's a great babyface here. Babyface in peril. James is getting his feet with this death metal gimmick. Looks great. I kind of wish the gear style that became popular about 2 or 3 years ago. I think he could have taken and would have put him over the top.
I think that at this point in time, this gimmick was ahead of the curve. Yeah. Like I was really proud of it. It was something that I crafted. We are at this point trying to build James up by giving him a streak. The plan is to basically start creating these machines that the champion or future champion will have to overcome. You know, you build your opponents. You don't just throw them feeder fish, right? So we have We have Gregory James here doing the mist. He's got the corpse paint.
This is also the first show with Morbius.
Yes.
So JC Bravo, who this is the funny part, right? So if you had told me from the very start, hey, in 2 shows you'll be using JC Bravo, I may have just told you, now forget it. We won't do the promotion, right? But JC showed up on the first show, was very interested, jumped right into this. I mean,
he bit the leg of this gimmick and just shook the fuck out of it, man. He did great.
He was awesome.
Yeah. So Morbius was one of the death metal clods.
Yeah.
In this clique that we began to build, and I believe what happens here is that we get James and Gant gets some good hope spots, but then ultimately gets misted by Greg James, and Morbius and Greg James basically abduct Gant and leave the building with his slain corpse.
So from that we go into Claxton versus Dalton. Now this is right up my alley. This is
classic Texas
Southern
wrestling,
Texas pro wrestling that do you hate world class Southern style or
no? I like it, but the thing is that
mediation, right?
I don't. It's like when you go to a buffet. If you go to a buffet and it's just chicken, you'd be pissed off.
Yeah.
So I like it, but I don't like just that. I think one of the problems is that in wrestling down here in Texas, one of the things that I encountered,
you get the full card.
It's just it's samey. It's just the same fucking thing.
So the other thing is you get this weird Memphis style spin on Texas style wrestling.
Yeah.
Where it's all gimmicks and smoke and mirrors and shit. I like when you can just have 2 Southern boys beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Right. So. And that's a lot of what this match was, with Claxton getting the win over Dalton.
I after the first show was really high on Dalton at this point.
Yeah.
I thought that this was a guy who he was a unique talent in that he could go out there, have a phenomenal match. A lot of people that I've encountered, wrestlers, they tend to be really absorbed, or not good wrestlers, by the way, bad wrestlers, tend to be really absorbed in their wins and their losses.
Yeah.
And you can still look like $1 million and not go over, you can get over and not go over. A lot of people don't seem to understand that. Sometimes it's how you fight the fight that gets you over. It makes people really pay attention to you.
There's a lot of times you can get more in a loss than you can in a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dalton was one of those guys who could, you could put him on a losing streak, but people would still be compelled by him, and he would always come out with something, and he would always look like $1 million.
You can have him show his ass, not literally, but sometimes, and then give him the mic for fucking 2 minutes, and he's got his heat back.
Yeah.
It never mattered if Dalton lost.
No.
Never mattered.
And all of his matches were always great. So he always looked strong no matter what. He was an obstacle. He wasn't just somebody that came out and got tombstoned and then rolled out of the ring and that's that. He wasn't the Brooklyn Brawler,
Yeah.
But yeah, he this match was great. I was enthralled by this match.
So up next we have Showtime, Scott Summers, and Ray Rowe.
Yeah. I remember being very happy that Scott was on this card. We had concocted a storyline for Scott that sort of begins here.
Yep. So Showtime is one of my closest friends in the business. Like, on a list of like 5, right? And after the first show, he calls me. He's like, what the fuck? Like, all my friends are there having a good time, and I had to be at home, right? And I remember calling Max, being like, all right, man, we gotta get Russ on. We gotta get Showtime on the card.
Just to preface this too, we talked on the other show about how Jacobs is one of these people who is a legitimate intimidating force and who's someone I would not want to fuck with. Scott's another one of those guys.
Yeah.
And I think that Scott and I always had kind of a good chemistry because I worked for a number of years as a door guy, as a security guy, a line of work he's very familiar with. So he understands the slings and the arrows that that, you know, erupt in your face when you're doing that job. And he also understands that it takes a legitimate toughness. A lot of people who know me don't really think of me as being a tough guy, but unfortunately I've had to be put in positions where I do have to prove that I'm not a slouch. And so Scott really connected with me over that occupation, but still, like, he's a guy that I would never in a million years want to fuck with. And the thing that's really amazing about Scott too is that a lot of what he does offense-wise looks phenomenal. When you think he's killing somebody, he's being real gentle. And in fact, I know there were instances where I actually saw him hurt people, and it didn't look like he was hurting anybody. But that's like when he wants to hurt you in the ring and he's got a problem with you, you won't be able to tell from the outside that that's what he's doing.
So they had a match in BOW, Jack Stane's promotion. In our media, we referenced that.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a non-finish finish. It was not that on paper when we walked in the door. So there was an issue because they felt like we were building off their storyline, which we sort of were, you know. But it was kind of like we've mentioned before. We didn't want to just have a match that clearly there was backstory to that we didn't address in some way. So they had this really well-received match in San Antonio. We knew that we had some people that traveled from San Antonio to our show, so we mentioned it, right? I think we even billed it as Showtime versus Road 2. And then we set a different set of stipulations to make it a little different.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the first encounter that they had tremendous buzz about it. And so, yeah, we really wanted to bring Scott in this big way.
Road 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But also, I think we had to alter the match itself and kind of respect, I believe, the other company involved by giving them a non-finish. I believe
it was our first weird political negotiation.
I think the Bolt Brady thing was our first, but this was definitely...
the other company wasn't involved in that one.
That's true.
All right. So originally they were like, well, what if I just get hurt? And I hate hokey kayfabe injuries. So I was like, if fucking everybody in this building better believe you're fucking, your leg's broken or some shit. And I think we went with a double count out.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. So, but still to this day, a match that fucking is incredibly hard hitting and holds up.
Yeah, great match.
So from that, from earlier in the night, we now have Starks versus Vex. Sean Vex, at this time especially, was another one of those guys that I considered a close personal friend from the business. And is somebody that is always, his presentation is incredibly genuine. It reminds me sort of like the Eddie Kingston charisma, where like they just feel very real. Mm-hmm. So this is Vex versus Starks. At this time, Vex was positioned as one of the top guys in Texas. And so Ricky Starks gets the clean win over Sean Vex here. And then Sean Vex puts him over in a promo afterwards that I get to see that sparkle from Vex that shines through from time to time. That very genuine delivery. That's all. He also he's from East St. Louis, legit from East St. Louis, so he has a little bit of that edge to him too. But you get that actual real feel from him. That
guy is pure gold. And in fact, my first ACW show, the show that hooked me, which took place at the original Emos on Red River, and I'm not talking about that bullshit that looks like a CVS that's out there now appropriating the name. I'm talking about the old Emos that was on Red River and 6th. One of the matches that just blew my mind in terms of the quality. The setting left much to be desired, but the quality of the work was undeniable, and it was Showtime Scott Summers versus infamous Sean Vex, and that match blew my mind. So at that point, I was really elated to be working with the roster that we had. I saw a lot of guys that I really admired that I knew could do quality work, and I thought if we gave them the right environment, the right motivation, and we created a non-drama, locker room, that these guys could really persevere. The one thing that we weren't really quite there on yet was presenting our stuff as media in a quality way. I really wanted to create a workshop where guys could go, hey, check out this match that I had in this place,
Yeah.
We weren't there yet.
Yeah. And in going back over this card, if you had a time machine and you go back to 2013, this isn't a Texas All-Star lineup. Like, you have JT LaMotta, you have Sean Vex, you have Andy Dalton, Showtime, Ray Rowe, Barrett Brown, Ricky Starks is coming up at the time. The Dagger Brothers are the hot new tag team on the scene. You've got Dalton, right? And then you go into the main event, and one of the wrestlers that started to get a huge reaction on our first show, our Jun Akiyama, if you will, of Inspire Pro's first show, Jojo Bravo.
Yeah.
Right? Hesitant, reserved JoJo has a bit of a fan swelling building on at this point. And it's JoJo versus Mike Dell versus Bolt Brady, who, and I'll say this about Bolt at this time, he is fucking cut.
Yeah.
He is in some of the best shape he's ever been in.
He looks like a fucking action figure.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then Mike Dell as well. He walks around and looks like fucking a GameCube fucking creator wrestler. Like, the proportions are all there. He looks like a fucking star. So we got 3 baby faces in the main event, and this is something that I would, today I would go, Max, we got to have at least one heel in there, but this match really works.
Yeah, and I think you said that at that point too, and I said, no, man, this is fine.
Yeah.
And it because at the heart of good professional wrestling, you have competitiveness, and I don't think that your D&D alignment should play a factor in who you're facing. If there's one guy who's really good and another guy who's really good, it shouldn't matter what their alignment is. They should just be competing for that top honor. And I always like to think that I did a good balance of playing with those elements.
Yeah. And yeah, just a good reminder here that 3 baby faces in a triple threat turns out pretty good. So yeah. Mike Dell, I believe, is filming the movie that he was in during his time with us at this point.
I think that was the case.
So I think maybe even that crew is here for this show or the next show or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dell is in the Pepsi halftime commercial. He is in a few other commercials.
He's had a lot of brushes with the entertainment industry. He was also seen on a show called Suplex Duplex on Adult Swim's programming.
Suplex Duplex Complex.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay, I never saw it.
Yeah, I did.
I don't got cable, man. I'm a wrestling promoter.
Yeah, I think I watched it. I watched it on YouTube or.
Yeah,
I downloaded it on torrents.
I had several of my very dear friends actually worked on that show, including a fellow by the name of Zach Carlson.
Yeah. So also starring Lance Archer.
Yes.
And the most famous person on that show, Chaz Taylor.
Okay. Moving along.
We got a little bit of time. Let's dive into some external Inspire related stories around the time. So I'm not sure if it was between this or before this show, but we also had the promotional spot with Alamo.
Yeah.
The Bots versus Beast.
Oh man, I really don't want to talk about that. That turned out, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm not a huge Alamo Drafthouse fan because I don't like the way that they treat people. Yeah. But we did set up a promotional spot where I believe it was we dressed up JoJo and Ricky.
JoJo and Ricky were robots.
Yeah, and I believe
Ricky Romita.
Yeah.
Was a kaiju.
Yeah.
And Bryce Simply Luscious's husband.
Yeah, Bryson Scott.
Bryson Scott got his tryout with us, dressed up as a kaiju as well.
So at some point, it's funny that we mentioned Zach Carlson, because at this point I was hosting a series called Video Hate Squad at Alamo regularly. And through them, I was asked if I would put on a wrestling promotional for the film Pacific Rim. And it was not a very positive experience.
No.
It kind of just plays into why I don't like the company and why I don't think I ever want to do anything with them again. But I had to chase the money that they offered me to do this all night, and they also said that they were going to get the wrestlers in to see the film, which they didn't. It was kind of just a nightmare.
It was like, so there was a tag team. We didn't even have a ref, right?
No.
We used Ralph Stan Summers as a ring announcer who also doubled as the ref and like represented humankind.
He was dressed as Patton.
Yeah, he did the Patton speech, or at least he was supposed to.
Yes.
He got close, but not the performer that you would want in that position.
He came out and did the Patton speech, and then the monsters attacked him, and then the robots, who were played by Ricky Starks and JoJo, came out and saved him, and there was a match. And it was all over in the blink of an eye, but the kids had fun. Yeah. It came off well. It was professionally produced. It looked good. It was done on on a shoestring budget.
That's for sure. A shoestring budget we got 3 months later.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there at some point here we get courted by the NWA.
Is this when this begins?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
sometime before the third show, we take a trip to Houston.
I'm curious to hear how you're going to paint this shit, because I have a very specific recollection of you turning fucking white because of how I behaved at this meeting.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we'll just get into it.
Wait, okay, wait a second. When did the New Japan shows happen?
This is later on.
What, the New Japan shows? Or
Ooh, it's getting close. Okay. The New Japan shows take place between our fourth show and our third show. So we take a trip down to Cypress, Texas, which is the at this point the main office of the NWA, because my close friend Tony Brooklyn and another gentleman, Bruce Thorpe, have procured the rights to the NWA. On our first show, I hit them up and see if they're interested in us, and it's like they want no part of us. But now they seem to be interested, so we're going to take this trip. We're going to meet with them, and we're going to see, what's up. So we get there, and it's chaos. So we basically just get put in the crowd.
This is at a VFW hall, by the way.
Yes,
we need
the world famous Cypress VFW.
I'm not going to go into the quality of the show. I really liked Tony. He seemed like a very genuine person. However, Bruce Tharp, on the other hand, just seemed kind of like a game show host. Yeah. He's just one of those people who you look at him and his teeth are too fucking white, and there's just something off about the guy. He has a real snake oil quality to him, and I'm not worried about saying that. I think that anybody that really knows the situation that erupted later on would agree with me.
He looks like the human embodiment of Reagan from the Genesis fucking music video.
With glasses.
Yeah, with glasses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he literally looks like claymation.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we don't get to do this business before the show, so we have to wait the entire show. Then we're kind of waiting around while business is being handled at the show. And we finally get ushered into like this closet in the dressing room.
I gotta tell a story.
I'm gonna let.
I gotta break in.
Don't break in with Chaz until the very end.
No. Okay. There's the thing that occurred with Chaz before the show even begins.
Oh yes.
So yeah, you need to give people a little background on who Chaz Taylor is.
Oh, he's the most famous Texas wrestler of all time.
Yeah.
No bullshit.
Yeah.
So
air quotes.
So when I was booking in Houston, this is air quotes.
Yeah.
Working with Chaz, which meant I would write up the card. I would take his ideas. I would modify them to be into something that I thought might actually draw people into a building, send them back, and then he would show them to his dad as his work. And that is incredibly degrading and should have never been something that I like fucking accepted. But it was my first big break to do something creative.
And Chaz, like I had to paint the picture, the portrait, but Chaz is kind of like this beefy guy with a mullet, and he is kind of almost like the stereotypical idea of an 80s wrestler.
Yes.
So right out of the gate, there's something kind of like familiar about him.
So yeah, like Chaz broke in with Global with his dad, was on TV like at the age of like 18, right? And in Chaz's mind, he went on to become the biggest wrestler in the world in like 1996. So he is still basically living in a 1996 where he is the greatest wrestler of all time.
There's a little Kenny Powers in this mix.
A lot. So I'll yield back to you for Chaz story number 1.
So yeah, we drive from Austin to Houston to go see this NWA show, and my general idea is that, you know, our second show, of course, was well received, because at that point, you know, as a booker, I took my position really seriously, and I think I was probably manic at points in not only just remaining consistent, but topping every fucking thing that we would do. I was really adamant that this show has to be better than the last. We have to blow what we just did out of the water, and we have to continue to climb. The crowd was super hot. You know, more people showed up than the last show. I think that's one thing that we need to kind of emphasize, is that we saw the gate grow.
Yeah, I think we were close to 200 this year.
Yeah. So, like, you know, the first show was 150. This show, I believe, was over 200, you know, but we broke what we drew initially.
There were more than 200 people in the building, and we had sold to close to 200 of them.
Yes. So, you know, we saw growth. That's really important to mention, because a lot of times, you know, maybe if you pop a number for that first show, you might not have hooked anybody.
Yeah, first show may have sucked and no one came back.
Yeah,
right?
but
we had people, you know.
That was not the case. So at this point, I think it's suffice to say that in some ways we had created this buzz, and we were kind of the prettiest girl at the dance at that point. And that is why this company, NWA, the classic NWA, sort of, an incarnation of it, that had been bought and sold and traded like some broken down mule to these other guys. That's why they came knocking at our door, because they knew that we had tapped into this market. One thing I need to touch upon before we move any further is NWA velocity.
Oh, yes.
This is really important, and I need to go into this, and it really kind of establishes why my attitude was pretty shitty when I went. So there was there's a hall that's actually just down the road from my house where was it Austin Rhodes?
Austin Rhodes.
Yeah. He's related to Dusty Rhodes?
No, he's not. Yeah. So he was apparently married to like his cousin at some point.
Like for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dustin and Cody do not recognize him.
No. But this guy has like really banked off of the Rhodes name. He is largely kind of laughed at by most people who know who he is. I don't really understand what his relationship was with the NWA at the time, but he somehow managed to exploit this building who gave him a monthly budget of $5,000 to run shows out of this convention center. And the funny thing is that he blew most of the money on TNA advertising time, but in his infinite genius decided to run his shows on TNA pay-per-view days. But yeah, they basically drew about 40 people, I think, for the first show, even with the NWA name. So at this point, I've heard a lot of horror stories about this run and how the venue became incredibly soured on the idea of professional wrestling. But also to me, it proved that in this market, just throwing the letters NWA on your card or your poster did not mean shit. It didn't mean anything. So anyway, I'm very soft at this point about joining. I'm not interested in just signing this thing off. I have a lot of bad ideas about what's going to be said to me, when we sit down and talk with Tony. But yeah, so Austin to Houston.
Oh man.
And I get there, and of course I've got to take a leak, and so I go into the bathroom, and I'm standing there, and I finish relieving myself, and as I turn around, I find myself nose to nose with Chaz Taylor, who's just towering over me, this shirtless, baby oiled up guy. I can smell it on him, and his mullet is just glistening, and he's like looking at me very seriously, like mad dogging me, like I feel like I'm in prison. And he goes, "You ever get the feeling that you're being watched?" And so I'm like, "No, man, you were real slick." And then he just goes, "Oh, I'm just joshing you," and he slaps me in the arm like I'm fucking Gilligan, And then, of course, we go and we take our seats and we watch this show, which, to me is the epitome of what I didn't really like at the time about Texas wrestling. Just, there was, it was just a show. I didn't like the crowd. I didn't like the building. But after the show, we find ourselves talking business. And this was just like... So yeah. Tony asks us to step into a supply closet, which to me was just the most flea market bootleg bullshit. I did not expect that. I thought, hey man, maybe we're going to go to a Chili's or something afterwards. Yeah. Nope, we're going to sit around these bottles of bleach and a fucking mop and talk about our potential deal.
The boxes of Sun Chips.
Yes. Anyway, go. You can go on. I want to hear your take on this.
The deal was set. Like, we were already in a shitty mood from having to sit through the show, and then the deal was sour. So I remember, because Tony's a close friend of mine, right? And I remember you basically just bold-faced being like, "Nope."
No. Okay.
Whereas I would be more in tune to just being like, it's probably not going to work for us, and then we drive back home. You, if I remember correctly, laid out details.
Yes, I did. So, the idea was that we would affiliate and we would put the name on our product, and they wouldn't tamper with anything. But I didn't really understand exactly what they were going to do for us. Okay, because at that point, these are two old guys. They don't know anything about social media. There's just nothing there. There's no value other than putting the NWA thing, that logo on your poster. So we're in the closet talking to Tony Brooklyn. And he tells me, what was the number? He said, in order for you to put our acronym on your poster, we're going to need X amount of dollars. And I think when he made it abundantly clear that we would be paying them.
Yeah, I think it was $1,000. Yeah, it was $1,000 a year, I think is what the initial.
Yeah. And I said, wait, we got to pay to do this? And at this point, Biss has this look on his face like, what the fuck, bro? Like his mouth is slightly agape and his eyes are real wide. And I say to Tony, no offense, but NWA Velocity drew flies based on your company's name. And it had Austin Rhodes involved with it. And he also burnt the venue so that no company can ever run out of it again. NWA did not come out smelling like a batch of roses in that situation, but it also proved that the NWA name has absolutely no value in Austin. I said that we'd had exponential growth from one event to the other, and people are very excited to work with us, so I see no reason why I should be paying them to work for them to make their brand matter in our city. I said I would be happy to fly the NWA flag, but I am not going to pay to do it because I think that is just not good business.
Yeah. So obviously everyone in that room not super excited about not the outcome that anyone thought was going to happen.
I don't think anybody expected me to talk.
Oh, if I brought you there, I knew that you were going to talk. I may not have expected you to say that, but anyway, so we go to leave the room, and we walk out, and there is Chaz Taylor, butt naked, with his ass facing the door, reading the newspaper, like it's the greatest gag of all time. and it's like we're walking out of a fucking funeral
and
home.
his basketball shorts are around his ankles.
Yes, in the middle of the room.
In the middle of the room. Yeah. So yeah, we turned down the NWA deal and walked out to Chaz Taylor's ass.
Yeah. So the NWA will come back up later on, but not a great step in the relationship.
Yeah, the drive back was fairly quiet. I thought Biss was mad at me, and he may very well have been. And I think that the only thing that really broke the ice with us was when we almost died on the road.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened, man. Like, we were on a very rural road going back, and some guys
two-way road.
Yeah.
And somebody swerved into our lane. I had to swerve into the opposite lane to get around him. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that guy spun off into a ditch, and I think we were just too tired to go check on him, and
scared shitless.
And we just kind of laughed, and and that kind of like brought us back together. I mean, facing death, is probably the only thing that could have made Biss, if he was mad at me, not mad at me.
I don't think I was mad. I wasn't mad at you. I was disappointed that they didn't see the value of working out a deal with us, other than just doing the weird carny thing where they mill money from other promotions. I don't think my disappointment lied in you. I think my disappointment lied in that I never really enjoyed the NWA, but then once Tony got it, I thought that maybe it would be different, and I was getting the feeling it wasn't going to be different.
Yeah.
So that was sort of my disappointment.
So, yeah, I mean, the Sheik basically, not the Iron Sheik, but the Sheik that previously held the title. That guy paid for that title with cocaine.
Yes.
It didn't have a rosy reputation at that point.
I always believed that there was value in the women's title and in the light heavyweight title, because the lineage of those titles, at least for an indie fan, is pretty cool. And then if you go further back, there's some cool lineage to those titles that you could maybe play with if you wanted to present them. And you'll kind of see my ideas towards that the further down the road we get with some of the other things we do.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's a good stopping point before we jump into our third event. But yeah, there we are, parked on the side of the road after almost getting killed and turning down the NWA, which is not where I saw myself at that point in time 5 years prior. Anyway, we'll see you soon.